Welcome one, welcome all, greetings and salutations. Welcome to the online edition of the Ultimate Hockey Show due to scheduling conflicts. And on Mike FM Winnipeg, we decided to do the show, or for lack of a better term, I decided to do the show today via digital for our second round playoff preview. We'll have picks, we'll have the whole 9 yards before the end of the show. Let's bring in my co-host. You know him, you love him. His name is Rich Petty. Good afternoon, Rich.
Good afternoon, Michael.
How are you today?
I am doing well. I am excited about our hockey show today. I'm excited about the the first round almost being over and the second round already starting, which is really weird. This is it's a weird year for a lot of people with the COVID and what's gone on, but having rounds start while other rounds are finishing, it's just a weird circumstance. We haven't seen this ever in terms of hockey playoffs, and so it's just weird. And some cities having fans in the stands and some cities still not having fans in the stands. It's just very odd. How about you? How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I admit it was weird listening to a game one of a second round series while watching the game six. For those that don't know, there are scheduling conflicts at TD Garden in Boston. They had NBA game Friday and tonight. That's why they had to start last night. But anyway, that aside, it was weird. It was weird watching a full house for one game, and the other game had 2,500 fans as they did in Montreal. And my goodness, Rick, I can't get the fans singing out of my head. Still, almost 24 hours later. Kotkaniemi and Nick Suzuki back-to-back overtime winners. Let's start there. Our top story of today's show, Montreal and Toronto, fourth in the North versus first in the North, best of seven series, tied 3-3, Game 7, as you can see, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Central Time. Goodness gracious, Rick. I did not for one see this coming at 3-1. And I can't help but feel for die-hard Leaf fans, of which I used to be one. I think a lot of them are thinking, uh-oh, here we go again. And my question to that is, do Leaf fans have every reason to feel, uh-oh, here we go again?
This is the thing, this is one of my irritations that because this leads into what you're asking me, is that where you have like an announcer or a color guy will say, ooh, like for example, this is the first time, or Winnipeg hasn't won against Edmonton in the postseason since 1981 or something. It's like, you know what? None of those players play anymore. The general managers aren't around. Ooh, what is this guy? Like, I'm just saying, comparing something even year to year, there's not much of a comparison. Things change, right? The teams change, players change, circumstances change. The Leafs aren't the same team as they were last year. Last year they had Anderson and net. This year they have Campbell. Last year they didn't have Simmons or Thornton or Brody. There's lots of change. This year, they don't have Tavares in the lineup, or haven't had him for the majority of the series, and now they don't have also a Jake Muzzin is out of your lineup. So you could argue your number 1-2 defenseman and your number 1-2 center out of your lineup. It's huge, right? So it's a completely different circumstance. But that being said, I don't know. Montreal is playing just like the Winnipeg did. You didn't think that Winnipeg had a chance against Edmonton upon the season series. You didn't think Montreal had a chance against Toronto when you looked at the season series head-to-head. And yet Winnipeg played very well against Edmonton, and now Montreal is playing very well against Toronto. And it's attributable, at least for Montreal, I think, to a number of things. I think it's to a balanced scoring. I think it's a commitment to defense. I think it's fantastic net minding by Carey Price, although Jack Campbell's been very good as well because these have all been very close games. But the difference between winning and losing is not huge. You just have one defenseman, McDermott, there. I don't know what he was doing on that play. He has the puck. He's a left-handed shot. There's a guy outside on the center ice. Bang it up the boards, and it's out. It's done. And he does this spinorama thing. I looked at it from every angle. They showed it 100 times, and they never really kind of blamed McDermott. I was thinking, McDermott a brain fart. He does a spinorama, and he coughs up the puck as he does a spinorama in his own zone for no reason. And boom, the puck is in the back of the net. So, and he didn't play that much. Like, he wasn't getting a lot of ice time in overtime or in the third period either. So, I don't know. I give Montreal all the credit in the world because nobody expected them to do anything against the Leafs, and they seized on their opportunity. And the Leafs are in tough. Like you say, there's pressure now. They have their number 1-2 centerman and their number 1-2 defenseman out of the lineup. They were up 3-1.
And they lost Muzzin yesterday. So
that's why, yeah, like their 1-2 defenseman and their 1-2 centerman. Yeah, Muzzin and Tavares are out. So I'm just saying they're in trouble, and they got a lot of pressure on them, a lot of expectation. It's a very tough spot to be in. But I wouldn't say here we go again. I don't know if it's that, but it'll be interesting if Toronto loses tomorrow night. I think there's going to be changes on that team, and not just in the dressing room. And I don't think it's going to be Sheldon Keefe. I think it's going to be something up high, either Brendan Shanahan or Kyle Dubas, or both. But
I mean, you're looking at this, and you had the right to assume if you're a Leaf fan coming into this, and if we're having this conversation 2 weeks ago, when the North hadn't even started, you're looking at it being handed to the Leafs on a silver platter, a primary opportunity to hit what would in most years be the conference finals, but in this year will be the league semifinals, although it's trending toward being conference finals the way the seedings are ending up shaking out. Who knows?
yeah.
How that's going to end up. But, if it wasn't last year, if it wasn't the year before, 2 weeks ago, we're having this conversation saying, okay, this is a great opportunity. No time like the present for the Toronto Maple Leafs. When is this core going to get it done? And that's assuming they lose tomorrow. But the thought process, it's very unique how teams pushed against the wall when push comes to shove. When push comes to shove, teams look at Minnesota for a prime example. I want to get to them in a second, but they did it to Game 7, losing Game 7 to Las Vegas. There's something about teams that are on the verge of going home where they just scrap and claw. Carey Price keeps them in the overtime last night, and such is life in overtime. You only need one shot for that whole game and potentially an entire series to turn on its head.
Yeah.
So I'm very intrigued as to what's going to happen tomorrow, particularly from a goaltending standpoint. Carey Price against Jack Campbell. Well, I was looking up some of the stats. And the Leafs have outscored Montreal by a wide margin. Jack Campbell has almost a 960 save percentage. If you would have shown me those numbers without having watched the series, I would have said, yeah, you're looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs being in the second round. But you're talking about the game within the game last night. 0-0 third period. Okay, there was a penalty called. Montreal does not have a power play goal all series. Well, they get one there. They're up 1-0. And funny enough, Winnipeg Jet fans have a problem with this gentleman for years going back, and their dislike for Corey Perry, well, he basically did his best to give the Jets more rest by getting their first power play goal of the series. And then Sheldon Keefe has an unexplainable challenge, and I want your opinion on this. I don't know what he was seeing, but that could have been interference last night. I thought that challenge was not smart. I don't want to say it was dumb. I don't want to say it was stupid because that would be going too far. But I just can't understand why, if you're Sheldon Keefe, you challenged that last night, especially.
Well, I can tell you why. I can tell you why. Are you asking that as a rhetorical question? Because number one, Montreal hasn't scored a power play goal up until then for the whole series. And number two, it's not something, it's the funny thing about this goaltender. It's not just that a guy puts his hockey stick into the goalie's nose or puts it into his glove. It's that you interfere with the goalie being able to get to make a save in his crease. So if you're standing in his way from sliding across the blue paint to get into a position to make a save, that's also goaltender interference. And that was his angle, because I believe it was Toffoli was standing in the crease. Price Campbell had slid over, and Toffoli was standing in the crease. And they said that, their argument was if Campbell would have made more of an effort, he didn't really start trying to get over until the puck was already in the net. But it's like if he would have immediately tried with the scrum to get up and try to slide over, and Toffoli's in the way, they got an argument. And so that's what I think Sheldon Keefe was trying to go after, was that a Toffoli was not that he interfered with him directly, but that he inhibited his ability to get across the blue paint to make the save on the Perry
and
shot.
He inhibited his ability to get in the crease. Because remember, that play happened outside the crease. There was white everywhere. He wasn't even in the crease. And I think, with looking back, and I saw the play again this morning because I had the game on PBR, and I just wanted to have another look at it because I knew we were doing the show today. If Jack Campbell makes a concerted effort to get back into the crease and doesn't stay where he is, I think you make a legitimate case for goalie interference. If Jack Campbell makes a concerted effort to try to get in the blue paint and he's impeded his ability to get into the blue paint, I think then you have goalie interference. I just think Jack Campbell didn't really help himself to try to be convincing enough to get that call, especially since the original call was the goal on the ice. And as they say, you need overwhelming, inconclusive evidence or overwhelming evidence, which way you are on the challenge, to overturn that. And I do not think it was cut and dry that was goalie interference. Therefore, the call on the ice stands. Now, the other kicker to this is the penalty that resulted in that challenge and resulting in another goal. Full credit to Toronto. They were able to come back, tie the game at 2, and go from there. But you know what? It's just one of those things where it's overtime. You dominate the overtime. It's like you give one guy a square inch and he'll take a mile and win the hockey game. And that's what happened.
Yep.
And smart play by Heponiemi to Finn there. He used Bogosian as a screen. Bogosian got a piece of the shot, which changed direction past Jack Campbell. He had no idea. He was not going to stop that thing unless it was over top of the net. So it's just it's a fine line, right? Because if you look back at Toronto's 2 goals, Montreal had a direct impact on those 2 goals. One of them goes off the winner's skate, the other off the defenseman. So, yeah, I think the message for Game 7, Rich, if you're Terry Price and if you're Jack Campbell and you're trying to beat these goaltenders, as it is with most goaltenders now, these goalies are too dead to be beat on clean shots, a tip, a rebound, a shin off a rear end, off of something.
Yep.
It's the best way to beat a goalie these days.
And the best way to stop your goaltender from being beat is for Mr. McDermott, is it McDermott or just Dermott? Sorry, I keep saying McDermott.
Yeah,
Mr. Dermott is to bang the puck off the glass and don't do spinoramas in your own end. in the first overtime. Your coach is not going to be impressed, and you probably won't see ice time very much the next game as a result of a decision like that. So
finally, what do you do with the Leaf lineup? You have Nick Foligno, who was back in the lineup yesterday. Clearly not back to full health. I didn't think the way he was skating. You can convince me otherwise if you played hockey, but Nick Foligno looks far from 100%. John Tavares has already been ruled out for tomorrow. Jake Muzzin, one of your top 4 defensemen, probably will not play. The way he went off like that, and he was mouthing to the bench and the trainers, "I'm done." Looks like a lower body kind of a hamstring groin thing. And speaking from experience, not being a pro hockey player, I would be very shocked if there's something that they can do that would get him in the lineup for tomorrow. So that being said, probably Rasmus Sandin draws back in, probably Adam Brooks draws back in. Do we learn anything from Minnesota's attempt to rally from a 3-1 deficit coming up short that we could take into tomorrow? It's difficult to win 3 straight, especially 2 on the road. Is there a cautionary tale for Montreal?
I see, but this is where it's different. Vegas is Vegas, and comparing Vegas to Toronto, that's not a fair comparison, because Toronto, when they're healthy, is not Vegas, and when Toronto is going to miss 2 or 3 important parts of their lineup, or potentially 3, with Foligno being even at 50%, you're missing 2.5 really important pieces. I think Toronto is vulnerable, and I think Toronto, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them. I mean, they could come out and play a fantastic game, and away they go into the second round against Winnipeg, but I think all the pressure is on Toronto. Montreal has no pressure. They can just play their game. They know what they've had success with. They know what they have to do in order to beat Toronto. They just continue to do it. Take their time, get outshot, get out chanced, in terms of the possession of the puck, all good things for Montreal. They don't mind. And then when they get their chance, boom, they score a goal. I mean, that's how they've done it for all their wins. So Toronto has the pressure on them. For them, they're going to have some. I'm still waiting for, they're great players, but I'm saying for Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, especially Austin Matthews, like being a number 1 draft choice, to take over a game, like to just, the way that McDavid dominates a game, the way that Crosby has dominated games, the way that Nathan McKinnon dominates a game. I'm waiting for Austin Matthews to just say, I need to take my team, regardless of who's injured or whatever, and I need to be great, so great that it's overwhelming, that I will my team to win an important playoff game. And I'm still waiting for that from Austin Matthews. He has little snippets where he's great, and then there's long stretches where he's not really noticeable. And for a superstar, it's not great. It's not great, especially when your team needs you, when your captain is out of the lineup and your number 1, 2 defenseman, you could argue 1 or 2, whatever. But you need Austin Matthews to step up and be great. And I'm still waiting for it because I haven't seen it. How about for you? Like, are you waiting for him to just show that he's a dominant player? I am.
Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. When found, please return to Toronto.
Go look in the lost and found inside the Toronto arena.
No, but I'm like, okay, let's have this discussion, because we've had this discussion off and on. The playoffs are a different game. We saw Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl get shut down by Winnipeg. We've seen Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner get closed on for 1 goal in 6 games to this point. We've seen Crosby and Malkin contained in Pittsburgh. There is not a lot of goal scoring for top end guys to do what they do in the playoffs, what they did in the regular season, which is why I would argue that depth is the most important. Not to sound like Captain Obvious, but the top two guys get it done in the regular season, but when push comes to shove in the playoffs, the bottom six and the bottom six forwards and maybe your bottom three defensemen, as we saw in Game 7 of the Vegas Golden Knights series, are more important than your top two guys.
Yeah, you're right, because that's how goals are scored. It's for the superstars to be great in the playoffs, they've got to change their game a little bit. You're right, because there's not the freewheeling space. You've got to make checks. You've got to sometimes have a shift where you don't do anything but play really great defense and hit a few guys, knock down a few passes, get a stick in the way, and maybe prevent a 2-on-1 from going the other way. And that's a great shift for you as a superstar. And you're not going to get a chance to score a goal, but you're still going to be significant. And what I'm saying is you're still going to be noticed. Fans are going to notice, and your coaches and your teammates are going to notice. And I'm just saying, I just find Matthews and Marner, I mean, not that I'm a big Leafs fan, because I'm not, but I'm just saying Austin Matthews as a first-round draft pick or first overall and whatever, he should be dominant, like how Nathan McKinnon dominates a game, how Crosby dominates a game, how McDavid dominates a game. We're waiting for that from Austin Matthews. And there's times, but there's not enough. And I'm not sure what it is. If he's injured, maybe there's a reason he's playing through an injury, but I just find him to be, he's just not a driver in terms of willing Toronto into victories. And that could change on Monday. Maybe he has a super dominant game. Who knows? Maybe he's listening to our show right now and he takes it for what it is and away he goes on Monday night. But I don't know. I think they are up against the wall, Toronto. They have their backs up against the wall and the pressure is all on them. So we'll see how they respond on Monday night. Be very interesting.
Who pulls the one card out potentially, but makes the house of cards just fall at cave in?
No. Are they going to have fans in the Air Canada Centre?
Nope, no crowd tomorrow at Scotiabank Arena.
No, not in Ontario. That's what I thought there was. Or sorry, it's not Air Canada anymore. Now it's it's called the Scotiabank Centre.
Scotiabank Arena, yeah.
Scotiabank Arena. Okay. Yeah,
but Rick, are we not giving enough credit to the Jake Evans, Brendan Gallagher, and I forget who the third member is of that line? Are we not giving credit to Montreal's top defensive line for keeping Marner and Matthews in check?
Yeah, they've played well. They have played well. I mean, for spots, yeah. I mean, Toronto's won 3 games, so it's not like they've been completely invisible. But yeah, I would give credit to Montreal. There's no question. They've played well enough to win. They've been fortunate because they've been outplayed in the 2 games that they won in overtime. Were outshot, outchanced, outpossessed of the puck, but they were just very opportunistic. So now we're going to see on Monday night what's going to happen. To me, this is really, I mean, I don't want to put a big thing on this, but to me, this is a real a signature moment for me for Austin Matthews. Like, what kind of a player are you? Are you a driver? Are you a superstar who wills his team to play, no matter how hard it is, to play your very best in the hardest situations, with the most pressure, when the most is on the line? There's not much more than in the 7th game in the Stanley Cup. Yeah, so it would be really interesting to see.
I would echo the line you just used, except put the word playoff in front, because Austin Matthews did lead the league in goals. But leading the league in goals in the regular season doesn't help you in the playoffs if you don't do the same. Yep. Now, in fairness, that number 1 line for Toronto has not been on the ice for a goal yet in this series. So he says they're doing it in other ways, but Game 7, he's got to make things happen. Really quickly, I just want to post this banner one more time. I know you and I talked about the sweep on Tuesday on our radio show. What did you like for the Jets in their series against Edmonton in a quick sentence?
I have never been so happy to be wrong in my whole life as I was after the Jets won in overtime in Game 4. So there you go. So I'll say that and say, similar to Montreal, Edmonton was the better team in the regular season. Winnipeg was not expected to win. Not anybody, I mean, maybe guys in hockey pools would select Winnipeg to win, but anybody who's sort of a hockey person of note on national radio or sports writer, television, podcast, etc., of any significance, I don't think he picked the Jets to win even in 7 games against Edmonton. So for the Jets to win and then win in 4 straight, pretty amazing. But we argued, and I think it's very important to remember, those were all close games. They were all 1-goal games, either decided in overtime or very late in the 3rd period. And Winnipeg has, right now, they're playing with a playoff formula that works. They can play 3 lines, or sometimes they play 4, although in the overtime in the 4th game, they didn't play the 4th line much. But they've got 3 sets of defensemen that they can all trust. That's the one thing, too. You noticed how against Toronto, they only played their top 4. Montreal, they only played their top 4. Did you know that for the Jets, they played their all 6 defensemen? They just rotate them through. Well, that's where, if you don't have any 5-6 guys, but you got a whole bunch of 3-4s, then you're very comfortable rotating through your 3 sets of defensemen. And so I think it's a super formula. You got 4 lines that can play. You trust 4 lines. You get scoring from all 4 lines. You've got a netminder that's playing out of his mind like he is the reigning Vezina Trophy winner, which he is. And they're playing the system, and they're playing patient hockey and being fortunate and opportunistic when they get chances. And that's a successful formula for the Jets. Now, can they keep it up when they get into the second round? And even more importantly, if they get past Toronto or Montreal, when they go up against Colorado or Vegas, that will be the interesting thing, because now the way things are situated, if they advance the Jets, they'll be playing Colorado or Vegas, whoever advances from that other side. So that'll be a real challenge. So let's see. But right now, they're playing playoff hockey, and they have lots of rest going into the second round, which will be, I think, another huge advantage. They have no injuries. Montreal has 1 injury. Toronto, if they happen to squeak by Montreal, they got a ton of injuries now to have to deal with going up against the Jets in the second round. So things look very good for Winnipeg. So
here's the question. We'll get to our picks in a second.
Yeah.
Just following up, have you had a chance to look at the series schedule for the Jets coming up?
No.
Okay, so they start Wednesday. They play Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Monday.
Okay, so similar to the first round with the back-to-back.
Yeah, back-to-back games, 3 and 4, either at Bell Center in Montreal or Bell MTS Place in Winnipeg.
Right.
Does the schedule benefit the Jets in this next round, given the fact that, number one, it's been 4 games. It'll be 4 more games for Toronto or Montreal before Winnipeg sees the ice.
Yeah.
Plus the compacted schedule to start the series. To me, this is all advantage Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Assuming that they shake the rest off, and I see no reason why they can't.
Nope. And they stay injury-free. Yeah. It'll be, I think, as whoever they play against this next round, game 1, game 2, when you get into game 3 and 4 and it's back-to-back, I think it's really going to be tough on Montreal and Toronto playing against Winnipeg.
Okay, so real quick, let's get into our second round preview here for the next half an hour. Las Vegas taking on Colorado. I think this is the series of the second round. No offense to the other series, which we'll talk about. Tampa, Carolina would be a close 2, but this by far is the most interesting of the series in my mind. Las Vegas coming off a 7-game series against Minnesota. Colorado coming off a 4-game sweep of St. Louis. How do you see this series?
Well, these teams are 1-2 in the regular season. They're very good teams. They don't have a lot of weaknesses, but I don't want to like Vegas, and I don't, because you and I have had our discussions about expansion teams being perennial playoff teams after their first year and beyond in the NHL. So that being said, I don't want to like Vegas, and I think they have a real they're having trouble scoring goals, and I can't figure out why. And I just see Colorado here as similar to Winnipeg's situation, being well rested, not having any issues, not having trouble scoring goals, playing their system, not having any real injuries to anybody of significance in their lineup. Their net mining has been good. Their puck moving defensemen have played very well. So I see Colorado here as the favorite in the series, and I'd be surprised to see them lose to Las Vegas, even though Las Vegas is the number 2 team in the league in the regular season. I just think there's too many question marks with Vegas. Their net mining has been kind of up and down with Fleury, which is surprising, and they haven't had enough consistent scoring from through that lineup. Although Pacioretty being back in the lineup was a huge boost to them in in these last 2 games against Minnesota. How about for you?
How do you see it? Okay, yeah, I see it much the same way. I'm curious to see how Las Vegas is going to come out if they can pounce on Colorado not having played for a week. It sounds like the Avalanche had tough practices awaiting the winner of the Minnesota-Vegas series. So how quick can Colorado shake off the rest versus can Vegas continue the momentum from Game 7? That is the question for me. But again, I see it much the same way. Las Vegas, Colorado, this could be a conference final, but instead it's in the second round. I think these are 2 of the best teams out west in the Western Conference. If you go back to the way the old league and what we hope to get back to next year, who has the advantage in your mind in forwards?
I would still say it's Colorado, just with the consistent scoring, and they haven't really been up or down. They've gotten scoring from all through their lineup. Their superstars are playing well. They haven't had any sort of a drop off, for one game or two. I mean, they won 4 straight against St. Louis. And similar to the Jet series against Edmonton, it's not like St. Louis just rolled over. I mean, St. Louis is hard to play against. They are tough. They are physical. They play that same style that they played in 2019 when they won the Cup. Craig Berube is a good coach, and even if they don't have the same offensive skill and overall team defense that they did when they won the Cup, they are still hard to play against. Colorado had to work to beat St. Louis, and they worked, and they still won 4 straight. And that just shows me Colorado does not have any, or I should say, any exploited or seen weaknesses yet. We may see them now exposed by Las Vegas, but we haven't seen them yet as exposed by St. Louis. And St. Louis is not easy to play against. So that just shows me that much more how impressed I am with Colorado.
How do you see the defense matching up?
Very good. They both have very good defensive cores, very deep. Very, like, some guys that are very offensive and some guys that are very, very defensive minded. I still would give the edge to Colorado because I think they have more playmakers and more drivers of offense from the defense. I think they are, I don't know if they led the league, but they were in the top 3 or 4 teams with scoring from defensemen throughout the league was Colorado. So they get a lot of offensive drive from their defensemen who bring the puck up and come in as the 4th forward, if you will, in line rushes. So and even though Vegas does that, I give the lean to Colorado. How about you?
Yeah, you know what? I see it much the same way. I know this is a Titanic matchup with Vegas, Colorado, preview of a potential Stanley Cup if the brackets were 116, 250, and et cetera. But I just hope we don't get disappointed in this series because, so much has been made about, this is going to be a Titanic 7-game series. It could go either way. I'm of the mindset that Colorado dispatched a very good but undermanned St. Louis team. Vegas struggled with a defensive Minnesota team which lacked star power to score timely goals. And Vegas's goal scoring to me is going to be in question a lot with St. Louis. So, as much as I think this is going to be a great series, I could also see it being a great disappointment as well.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I hope that we disappoint you with how great the series is going to be, because I think it's going to be a very good series.
It's going to be a very good series, but easily has the potential to not be what we expect. That's all I'm saying. I think if you go into the series thinking, "Oh, pardon me,"
in what way will it not be the series that you think it's going to be?
Well, I just think Vegas showed some cracks in the armor against Minnesota. I think if Minnesota has one or two more pieces in the lineup and doesn't lose Jonas Brodin early in the second period of that game, and Joe Eriksson acted 100% and doesn't keep running himself into the goalpost, and Minnesota has one or two more players that can help with balancing the offense, I don't think Vegas gets out of the next round, out of the last round. And taking that into account, Colorado's a different animal for Las Vegas. So, as much as I want the series to go 7 games, I could easily see this going 5 games as well.
All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, I just think these are two very talented teams, very deep, skate well, score well, and they don't really like each other either. And they have lots of team toughness on both sides. So I think it's going to be a really good series. A lot of after whistle shoving and pushing and scrumming in front of the net. I think it's going to be very entertaining to watch. Even if you're not a Las Vegas fan or a Colorado fan and you haven't been following them throughout the year, I think me being a hockey fan, just enjoying really great hockey, I think this is going to be a series to watch. I hope I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And again, I don't dispute, but it should be a good series. But you could have a good series like what Winnipeg and Edmonton was, with a lot of overtimes. And look what happened. That looked like a 7-game series, but it was a 4-game sweep. So it's going to be a very interesting series that way. Do we want to make our pick, or do we want to come back around to pitch later?
Well, we already skipped over. Although we didn't do the win it, we're going to save. I don't know. Why don't we just do them now? Because we're right here. We're talking about them. Let's make it right now.
We'll do the pitch now, and then we'll circle to the other series. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to recap round one first?
Well, no, we talked about Colorado got past St. Louis in 4, and Vegas got past Minnesota in 7. Now we got Colorado and Vegas matched up. Who do you like in this series?
I'm going to go Colorado, and I like them to just their depth to overwhelm Vegas when it gets late in the series. I'm going to pick Colorado winning this series in 6.
Okay. I did exactly the same thing. I should show you my paper because it says that, and I wrote it down hours ago. So I picked the exact same way, and I'm not changing it. Simply, I want people to know I don't change my pick after you make a pick just so that I can be the opposite. If we are the opposite, it's all predetermined. So, but anyway, I picked Colorado as well in 6 for all the same reasons that we chatted about in the last 5 minutes.
Yep. No, I agree. Let's quickly move on to the series that will start in about 20 minutes time. That is the third team in the Central, Tampa Bay, taking out the first team in the Central, Carolina. Boy, Carolina had a – here's my thing. Carolina had more trouble than I anticipated was coming with Nashville. Let's get that out of the way. How this series hasn't gone 7 games or didn't go 7 games in the last round is a tribute to Carolina digging down when the moment mattered. Advantage Carolina. But I did not see Tampa Bay literally running wild and dispatching of Florida in the manner they did. Now, I know it got 6 games, but Brett, to be honest with you, that series was over when it hit game 4. It was just a matter of if it was going to happen in game 5, game 6, or game 7. And Florida was one of those teams that I think we underestimated as far as, for me, was a disappointment. But looking back, and it's easy to look back in hindsight, 2020 and all that kind of stuff, you see the teams that made their first playoff appearance with this group of core struggle. That was Florida. Tampa's experience shone through. Tampa's experience showed when it meant the most. Tampa showed you why they won a cup. Florida showed that they have another level to get to when it comes to playing playoff hockey. And I think they were a forward away from really giving Tampa a series. And they need to learn not to take penalties in the playoffs. Tampa's power play burned them. Stamkos and Kucherov, we sold you short. I sold you short. We thought it would take 3 games for them to get into it. They made noise in the first 3 games, and that was that. And that was full credit to them as well. So, again, it's a very interesting series, this one. And much like I think the other series that we just talked about, this is another mammoth series that it has the potential to be. And I think it's 2 teams that are very much like each other and have very different goaltending. Vasilevsky's been up for a Vezina. He's won a Vezina. Nedeljkovic has kind of come on the scene as the young guy with lots of experience. But other than that, I see this the same way I see the Colorado series. 2 teams that are mirror images of each other.
Yeah, they're both very good teams. I think this is why, even as much as I like the first round, I really like the second round. And because now you've got 2 teams that have won their first round, and you really see them being sort of setting themselves apart from the team that they played. And now you've got 2 very good teams. Like you say, a team with a long history of winning, and winning very recently last year, being the reigning champs, versus Carolina, sort of the up and rising team with lots of young talent and lots of ability. And I agree with you. Another great matchup. I think it's going to be another great series. They don't have the same hate on for each other as Colorado Vegas, because Colorado Vegas, they've just played more against each other in the last few years, I think, than Carolina and Tampa. We haven't seen that same rivalry actually built up. But I see it very much the same way. 2 very, very well-balanced teams, very, very deep teams that play their system very well, that have scoring throughout their lineup, play their system well, are getting fantastic net money. And you're right, one team having a veteran, a Vezina winner, and a champion, and another guy who's kind of, I know you say he's got lots of experience, but he's still, from an NHL perspective, he's kind of out of nowhere. And that might be the X factor now going into the second round. Maybe the pressure is a little bit more, so we'll wait and see. But I love this series. These 2 games, the Carolina, Tampa Bay tonight, and Vegas, Colorado. I mean, if you love hockey and you love great teams watching hockey, get in front of the TV at 4:00 and don't leave until you go to bed, because there are 2 amazing games going to be on tonight. So
I know I'm waiting for a chance to get outside. I've been watching the Blue Jays doubleheader. They just put 4 up on Cleveland in the second game of the doubleheader. They're in the 3rd inning of game number 2.
You haven't been outside yet today? I mean, it's gorgeous sun. I can see the sun shining in the window through over your shoulder. It looks beautiful.
It was stormy here earlier, though. It looked like it was going to storm with the wind and all that, but that's
good now. But in this series, I just tell you, this time I'm going to pick first. And for me, I was surprised that Tampa Bay was able to handle Florida. In hindsight, now I look at it, Florida not having the pedigree, the experience, being maybe a little bit too young, and the veteran leadership in Tampa just having more than what Florida had, especially Florida having trouble in net trying to figure out who was going to be the goalie they were going to go with. They really struggled with that, whereas they didn't have that problem in Tampa. And I'm not going to pick against the Lightning for the second round in a row. So for me, this is going to be a great series. It's going to go back and forth. I don't think it's going to go 7. I think it's going to be 6 games, and I think it's going to be the Lightning winning in 6. That's my pick.
How about
you?
I think this will be the series of the second round that I'll be most interested in as far as which way the result goes. I think these two, it wouldn't surprise me if Vegas, it wouldn't surprise me if my pick loses this series as well. So I'm going to go to Carolina Hurricanes. They have the playoff experience to win. They've been to an Eastern Conference final. They've been close a couple times. But it wouldn't surprise me if Tampa wins given their experience. But I think this is going to be a blabbermouth series for a different reason. And I'm picking the Carolina Hurricanes to win on home ice in 7.
Wow. Okay. Carolina in 7. There you heard it. All right. Let's move on.
But I'm not disrespecting Tampa in any way.
I heard you. But you got to pick somebody. Otherwise, why do we have a show?
New York Islanders and Boston game 2 tomorrow. They've already played one game, as you can see on the graphic. Boston winning 5-2 on the strength of a David Pastrnak hat trick. Your thoughts on this series without knowing what happened yesterday?
Okay, well, Islanders beat the Penguins, which I was surprised by. Real shocker. And the Bruins got by the Capitals, which I thought they would. So now you got Islanders and Bruins. To me, it's interesting. Each one of these series is going to be very unique. The 4 remaining series now going into the second round, in that the Islanders and the Bruins, they are probably, out of the 8 remaining teams, they are the 2 teams that I would say play the most similar style of game. It is a defense first, tough, forechecking, seizing on the other team's mistakes, forcing turnovers, forcing pucks to be turned over in the neutral zone or in the defensive zone of the other team, and then scoring on those opportunities and capitalizing when you get them. They play very similar styles that way. It's hard to play against them. I'm surprised the game was 5-2. This could be because the Islanders are a little bit more tired versus the Bruins. I don't know. But very evenly matched up teams playing a very similar style against each other. At times, this could be very boring hockey to watch. I hope it's not, but I'm still leaning one way versus the other way. But like I say, it's kind of interesting that you have 2 out of 8 teams playing a certain style and they end up facing each other in the second round, thus eliminating one of the other teams that will play that style. So how about for you?
To me, by the way, just to put a full disclosure on this series, I did watch the game last night. I thought Boston forced the Islanders out of the game. They forced the Islanders away from their game. Boston dominated the shots on goal clock. However, I don't think that one game is indicative of another team's series. I don't think that's going to be the way this series goes. Islanders will get back to their game. Boston just looks like a completely different team thanks to Taylor Hall. Pastrnak is having success because Taylor Hall is in the lineup to stretch that top 6 into really something formidable.
Yeah,
I expect the Islanders to still lock this series down and clamp down to what it's going to be. Islanders have to get back to their game. I think they need one game before they go back to the island. What was absolutely rocking against Pittsburgh. The one thing the Islanders had yesterday but Pittsburgh didn't have was timely goal scoring thanks to a David Pastrnak hat trick.
Mm-hmm.
All things being even, what we're going to find out, I think, in this series is the series will wind up nothing like the way the game was played last night.
Okay, we'll see. So it sounds like you're leaning one way more than another, and probably one way as compared to me.
Well, again, it's a very interesting series nonetheless. I still think there's a way we see Simeon Varlamov in this series. I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or if it's before game 3, but I think this series is going to be close until the very end, and I don't think game 1 is anything like the way the Islanders play the way I know they can.
Okay, so who do you like?
I like the Bruins in 7.
After all of that, then you say, oh, I like the Islanders. You're going on and on about the Islanders. It's like you're writing a love letter to the Islanders, like it's your long lost love from high school. And then you turn around, oh, I'm picking, I love Sheila. Sheila's the greatest. Sheila's the greatest girlfriend I ever had. Sheila. So who are you going with? I'm going to go with Amy.
Yeah. Well,
you're completely throwing off people with that type of a lead-in.
That's why I said don't read into anything.
Okay. So you like the Bruins in 7?
I like the Bruins in 7. And I liked them in 7 before the series even started.
Well, so you and I are going to go like we did last year a few times, where the Islanders would win a series, and then we'd keep on selecting any other team except the Islanders because we never believed they could maintain that same level of play over and over again. And I know I got fried last year not picking the Islanders. Well, I didn't pick them in the first round. They beat Pittsburgh. Now I'm not picking them again, and I'm going with the Bruins, but I'm going with the Bruins in 6.
All right.
So for all the reasons that we shared, I just think they have more scoring. Even though Islanders have lots of well-balanced scoring, I think they just have a little bit more veteran experience. They're a little bit tougher. They're a little bit deeper. And their net mining is a little bit more experienced. So overall, just a little bit.
Okay. Well, now, how do we handle the North Division? Because it's Winnipeg and.
Well, why don't you let me go first? Well, you're asking me. Okay. I'm telling you, for me, it really doesn't matter who comes out of Montreal and Toronto. I saw what Winnipeg did against Edmonton. And again, we're only making predictions on the forefront. Things can change. You can lose your number 1 goalie. You can lose your number 1 centerman and your number 1 defenseman, like what happened to Toronto. And things could really change how a series plays out and how the team you're selecting plays out. But for me, I think we saw it when the Jets had to go through Minnesota and then go through a really tough series against Nashville, going 7 games in 2018. The number 2 team in the league knocked off the number 1 team, and in 7 games. So the Jets were the remaining top-ranked team of the remaining 4, and they had nothing left in the tank physically, emotionally against Las Vegas. And you could see it. And I think there's going to be something for that with whoever gets through from Toronto and Montreal. Either way, if Montreal gets through or Toronto, I think they are not going to have enough physically, emotionally to meet up with Winnipeg, especially when you get into 3 and 4 when they are back-to-back. So for me, I love the Jets in this series, whoever they end up facing, either Montreal or Toronto. For me, even though they're completely different teams, I like the Jets against either team. How about you?
I see this as a little bit more reserved than you.
I know, but that's...
And the reason is there's something to be said about being in hockey shape, in hockey mindset. However, I feel as the series goes on, the Jets will have the advantage, as weird as that sounds. Well, not weird, it's fact.
Yep.
Injuries, depth, whatever. Barring something catastrophic, the Jets should put a good foot forward regardless of who they're playing. I would love to see the Jets have home ice in this round and really make a statement on Wednesday night and Friday night and just say, you know what, you have not seen the team that is the Winnipeg Jets the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And it's just, I am worried about the Winnipeg Jets in game 1, game 2, and game 3. if they can come out of game 1, game 2, and game 3 in reasonable shape and get back to that practice, this is not practice, this is a game, they'll be okay. Do I think this is going to be a 4-game sweep? No. I don't think it will be. I think the schedule advantages Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg can play anybody, anywhere, at any time, especially one of Toronto or Montreal. All I can say is please, 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 please send tomorrow's game to overtime and another overtime and another overtime.
Well, that's what we joked about. That's what I would love to see tomorrow's game, Toronto and Montreal, game 7, go like into 6 overtimes, be the longest game in NHL playoff history. And have, no, here's the best part, and then have each coach from each team go down to 2 or 3 lines and 4 defensemen and just exhaust your top guys. And then whoever comes out of that, actually 2 nights later, boom, you got to play Winnipeg. I love it. I hope it happens. Probably won't, but
long, extravagant rant I know I went on. End of it, ladies and gentlemen, the Winnipeg Jets, in my mind, will be the Kings of the North, and they're going to do it in 7 games.
7. Okay, I love Winnipeg too for all the same reasons. We don't know who it's going to be. Either they'll be, like you said, beginning at home against Montreal or starting on the road against Toronto, depending upon how things play out tomorrow night. They're playing Wednesday night either way. And I like Winnipeg, but I like them in 6. I just think it's going to be very difficult for either Montreal, Toronto. Montreal, maybe not as much, but if Toronto wins tonight and with all of their injuries, and I just don't see them having enough to overcome Winnipeg, especially with the way Winnipeg are playing. So I really like the Jets in this next round, no matter who they play. And I like them in 6 too.
Yeah, I agree with you. Really quickly, overall, when you look at the lead as a whole, I know we got about a minute left. How do you sum up this second round? What excites you the most outside of the local team being in this?
Well, I think you've got like Colorado, Vegas, and Carolina, Tampa, 2 series with 2 very good teams, highly ranked teams from their divisions, which will make for great hockey. You've got the Bruins against the Islanders, which are 2 defensive teams who focus on that and playing tough. And then you've got the final in the North, which is kind of a completely different thing of surprises, no matter how it plays out, and with a little bit more offense and just a completely different style of game than the other teams are playing right now. So I like it. I like this sort of playing in your own playoff pool and now the matchups. I know we've talked about it before, but it's going to be interesting to see who wins the second round and then going on to the final 4 to see how these divisional winners play against each other and seeing teams for the first time. And now immediately from not seeing them all year to bang, now you're in a best of 7 series. I think that is going to be very interesting for me and very exciting. It's going to make the third round really compelling. How about you?
It comes down to one sentence just to wrap up. Who is going to be the hero of the unknown? Somebody is going to step forward in this time of the playoffs and take control of a series, take control of a game. Who is that guy going to be?
Well, maybe it'll be Auston Matthews. If you're a Leafs fan, you're hoping so tomorrow night.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who is going to be that 3rd and 4th line, that depth guy that shines through right to the end? Anyway, Rich, if you could wait after the show intro is done, I want to talk to you on hold for just a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So don't disconnect after the intro goes, if you don't mind.
Nope.
This is going to be the Ultimate Hockey Show for this week. We'll be back at some point midway through the second round. Thank you very much for watching. On behalf of Britt Petty, this is Michael Dell saying have a great rest of the day, and we will see you, and you'll hear from us back on the radio at some point mid-round. Keep your stick on the ice. We'll be back in the middle of this round. Goodbye for now.